Okay, it says we're live. Let me make sure we're actually live. YouTube? There we go. All right. So, yes, hello, everybody.
Hello,
So,
hello.
it's a much quieter group than we normally have. Izzy's not feeling well. Steph wasn't able to join us because of work stuff and time changes. Tamika may pop in. We're not 100% sure. We'll see what happens there.
Mm-hmm.
But for tonight, it's just going to be me and Laura. So, Laura, why don't you tell everybody about yourself a little bit?
Hello, hello. I'm Laura. My channel is Laura's Library Card. And I think this is our, fourth round of the Love in the Night
Our
readathon?
fourth round,
Yeah,
which I love that it's our fourth round.
yeah. Paranormal romance is one of my favorite subgenres. So, uh, yeah, I was happy to dive back in for this one.
I think we all were. I felt like we all kind of had that itch where we were just ready for a
Right.
good paranormal reading week.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know I had a great time with my reads. Laura does have a vlog up of her reads already. Mine will be coming in the next day or two. So definitely make sure you check out her channel and her vlog and all the good things
Thanks.
there. I don't remember if I remembered to link people down below. If not, I will make sure I change that after this.
Okay.
But yes, so today our main topic of discussion is going to be How to Date Your Dragon by Molly Harper, which is
Mm-hmm.
the first book in the Mystic Bayou series.
Wow, 4 and 5 stars. That's awesome.
That's great. Um, Most of mine were 4 stars for the week, and I had one that was like a three, 3.5.
Mm. I enjoyed
I
my
know you
recent.
had one dud and a DNF, if I
Yes,
remember right.
I did DNF one of the books, but I mean
That was
I
it
had
was
a
hot and
fun
badgered,
week.
wasn't it?
Yes, it was hot and
And
badgered.
honestly, like that's totally valid. I feel like the first book is the most chaotic in the series because I've read them all. I'm current on the
Yeah.
series.
Oh, okay. Because I remember I thought it was you.
I enjoyed myself, but
Mhm.
like I understand the chaos.
Yeah.
But I think on audio for me it worked a little better. I know you said you
Okay.
struggled with the audio.
Well, I was also jumping into the audio just sort of as like a last ditch. Like, is it going to be better? So I think that I was already most of the way there, thinking, this isn't working for me. But I read on Goodreads. Who was it? I think it was Dylan, like Dynamic Dylan,
Yeah.
and I think that his post was like, could have used more plot, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like that was all there was. Like, and I think that he meant like he wanted a stronger like through line. He wanted more
Yeah.
like deliberate plot. And I was just like,
And
it was all action. It was all action scene after scene after scene after scene. Fight, 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 fight. Oh, so.
right. And I feel like that first book, you're more just establishing the world
Mhm.
and then the Honey Badger sisters. That's like
Yeah.
all that first book really does. I feel like their romance kind of got done dirty in that first
Yeah.
book because I feel like the other two sisters got way better romances.
Okay.
The second book is about the youngest sister. I think her name's
Stevie.
Stevie.
Yeah. Okay. I
It's
mean,
her and a panda shifter who is like
okay.
super chill and like mellows her out, and
Okay.
it works really well for me. So
Yeah.
that one was my favorite in that series.
I mean, I was intrigued by the world. I loved this idea that
It's
uh,
glitching. What the heck? Okay, there
yeah,
we
that
go.
was weird. I love the idea that there were so many different kinds of shifters, and that generally it seemed like everyone like got along. I just was like, I didn't want to keep clinging on to be like, what is happening until I got there, you know. So I just kind of was like,
Right. So
this
for
isn't
me,
working.
that actually bridges really well into Mystic Bayou because
Okay.
I feel like Mystic Bayou did what the Honey Badger Chronicles with all the different sisters was trying to do. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like that part worked a lot better for me in Mystic Bayou
Mm-hmm.
than it did in the Honey Badger Chronicles because
Oh, okay.
you have this hot pot of all these different like paranormal creatures just
Mm-hmm.
getting along together, and like there's an actual reason that brought them all
Yeah.
together and it makes sense and
Mm-hmm.
all those kinds of things. So like it had all those little elements that just worked better and served a better purpose for
Mm-hmm.
me in the Mystic Bayou series.
I've only read the first one. Like I read our group book, but I know that there's 4 or 5 plus more books in the Mystic Bayou series.
Yeah, there's a total of 7.
Okay, so is it
And I
finished?
read them all this week.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yes, it's finished.
Okay. So like and you were listening to them, you said, because
Yeah. The
okay, so
narrations were really good. Like I
okay.
was very pleased with the narrations.
Well, they're Audible originals,
They're
right?
part of the Audible Plus catalog though.
Oh, okay.
So you can pay for the catalog for the month, read them
Yeah.
all and ditch it.
Plow right through them all and just be like boom, 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 done.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't pay for Audible, so I was reading the ebook, which I enjoyed, and I think that you're right. I think that one of the strongest elements in How to Date Your Dragon for me was that setting aspect. I loved the. I mean, maybe it's like stereotypical Southern, but like I love that small town Southern town, everyone's super friendly vibe. That was
Right.
really great for
Zed
me.
is one of the best characters in the series. He's the mayor, he's a bear shifter, and
And he gets his own book, right? He better.
yeah, he's book 2. So you get
Oh,
him
okay.
right away.
Okay.
Um, but no, like Zed is just the stereotypical charming bear shifter, and I
Yeah.
love him for it
Mm-hmm.
because he is the perfect counterpart to Bael, our
Mm-hmm.
dragon male, who's the hero in
Grumpus.
this first book. Like they are the grump sunshine of the town. Like
Yes.
they just balance each other, and they have a
Mm-hmm.
great like bromance kind of feel to them.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell they just have this great camaraderie, and I just
Yeah.
love their dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that the sort of setup that was done in book one, I assume for the whole series, but to establish this is the town, here's sort of what's going on, here are some of the kind of key players that you're going to see come up throughout the rest of the series. I thought all of that was done really well, and this is the Mystic Bayou series. The first book was the group book for the readathon, which is How to Date Your Dragon by Molly Harper.
Mm-hmm.
So Shay has plowed through the entire series this
I
week and
did,
can speak to the
and I
rest of the
gave them
books. But
all 4 stars. Like
okay,
they're not the best books I've ever read. I
I
will
would agree.
never claim that.
Mm-hmm.
But I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I think they're a great, solid
Mm-hmm.
paranormal romp. If you're just looking for a fun paranormal,
Mm-hmm.
like they're great. You can jump into them, they're easy to follow, and I had a great time. They're
Yeah.
not going to be revolutionary, they're not going to knock your socks off, but they are a fun time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like,
See, while I was
it's all
reading,
predictable.
yeah, yeah. While I was reading, I was like, I think this guy's the bad guy. Yep, that's the bad guy.
Uh huh.
And I felt like there was a lot of predictability throughout the first book, but I was having such a fun time. I wanted more. Like at the end of it, I was like, wow, I had a really great time. And then I explained everything to my husband, and by the end of my explanation and discussion, I was like, yeah, there was some like once I put my like critical thinking hat on, I was kind of like, oh yeah, this is like meh. But like my experience reading was great and super fun. And like,
And
Shay
I
was saying,
think
like
that's
roll that
honestly
stuff.
what these are meant to be. They're
Yeah.
just supposed to be a fun, paranormal candy, cotton candy
Yes.
almost kind of read where you just jump in, you enjoy yourself, and you move on.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't one that's gonna like necessarily be one that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it, and just say that forever. It's not
Yeah.
that. It's fun.
Right.
And that's exactly what I want these group books when we have these readathons to be. I just
Mm-hmm.
want them to be something fun that we can all enjoy and discuss together, and it's just a good time. Um, so yeah, plot wise, like the plot didn't do anything great here.
Yeah.
Like it established like an outside force trying to control
Mm-hmm.
the paranormals called the League, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that gets played with a lot more as the series continues.
Yeah. Well, just the way you phrase that right there. In this book, the League has sent Jillian to be an anthropologist, to study, to survey, to question, just to kind of like get the lay of the land. And so I didn't really get much of an impression of the League in this first book. There's a little bit more at the end where she's dealing with one of her immediate supervisors, but there's not any ominous feelings. There's no, like, you just, the way you verbalize that was like, oh, they're trying to control, I think were the words you just used. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, also like
Well,
the plot thickens.
in their history, how the league was even created,
Mhm.
essentially is like way, 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 way back in the day, like thousands of years ago or
Mhm.
whatever. It's paranormal. I don't remember that. It in the past.
Long
Um
ago.
as in the before times.
Yeah.
That's how I usually phrase it. Um they they basically became this like enforced governing body,
Mm.
and they tried very hard to like get the paranormals to like sign a registry and basically control them, period.
Oh, okay.
And so the paranormals are like, no, you can't fully control us. Like, we
Yeah.
can take you out. And so they kind of have always had this like very interesting influx kind of relationship. So the
Okay.
fact that Zed invited the League into town was a big deal.
I see. Okay. I felt like that was maybe started to layer in, but you
Uh-huh.
definitely get more, it sounds like, later.
Yeah. Like, I feel like with each book you got a little bit more until
Mm-hmm.
like things get settled with the
Yeah.
League. And then from there there's other forces at bay that enter in and cause problems.
Yeah.
But I had a great time.
Me too. I had a good time. I will say, sort of one of my biggest complaints, which was something that I saw a lot on the Goodreads reviews when I skimmed through, was that the initial slash first intimate scene felt like it just came out of nowhere. Like, I literally like turned back a couple pages and was like, I didn't like skip a chapter, did I? And it's because they are out at the like rift, and then it's raining, and then he's like, let me take you back here, and then they're just like ripping their clothes off, and I'm like, weren't you just like arguing 30 seconds ago?
Right.
Do you know this guy's last name? Like, so I felt like,
Yes, she does, because it's all over town. His last name is
well,
Boone.
right. I just felt like I was like, oh, this is abrupt. Oh, okay. This is okay. Yeah. But I don't know. Like, I was fine with that at first
But
because I
it's
was like,
funny because that actually becomes a point later in their relationship,
okay.
because he like does this grand gesture for dragons. Like, he's finally
Well, yeah.
decided he wants to be with her. And so he takes her to his hoard.
Yeah.
Like, all of his dragon treasure, and dragons guard
Mhm.
that so secretly. Like, other dragons don't even know where the other keeps their hoard, because of
Right.
course they can't trust other dragons with their shiny things.
Right.
They're dragons.
Well, and so like the
And so
scene,
like had no idea he was giving this grand gesture of,
right.
I'm taking you to my hoard, and they like do it on his treasure.
Yeah.
And like, to
So
him
like
that
they're
is like, I love you, I want to marry you, you're my mate.
right.
But to her it's just like, okay, let's put on our clothes and go. And so it
I
just like becomes this source of conflict later. And so I just
yeah.
find it very interesting that little things like that end up popping up throughout the series. Later on, I think it's book 4 or 5. I don't remember. It's a few books in. It's Sonia's book, Jillian's best friend.
Mhm.
She comes down to the bayou and she gets a
I
book,
figured.
and her partner is a Selkie.
Okay.
And so the whole lore about Selkies and their pelts and things like that gets brought into that. And
Yeah.
it causes the different kinds of conflicts in their relationship because of the
Mhm.
pelt and stuff. And the way that Molly Harper, you can tell she's done a lot of research
Yeah.
on fake creatures, on paranormal creatures,
Mhm.
so that she can bring those little bits of actual lore
Right.
into her stories. And not everybody's going to do the legwork to do that.
Mhm.
And I just appreciated that she did.
Yeah, no, same thing here. I thought that this was going to be a welcome to the town where shifters and vampires get along. And then as soon as she's like getting there and she's like, oh, you're a this, oh, you're a that, oh, you're a that. I'm never, I loved that was like an element that was really surprising to me, or that I hadn't realized, I guess, and that I really enjoyed, because I think that there's tons of shifters, and wolves the most prevalent, I would say, but
Yeah.
I am very happy to see other mythological creatures, especially across multitudes of like Celtic and Indian, and
We have a
a
tree
whole,
nymph. We have a banshee. We have a dwarf at one point. Like,
yeah.
there's all sorts of paranormal creatures
Mm-hmm.
throughout the series, and it just makes it so much more fun. There's even a leprechaun later. Like,
Okay, yeah. Well, I
the
mean,
leprechaun's just a side character. Like, they're not a
yeah.
love interest or anything, but like,
I think
it's
that
just a great
brings.
time.
I think that you're right. Like the prep and legwork and background research that has to go into all of the researching of those mythologies and folklores and histories isn't necessarily bogging down this book. It's not like I'm feeling like info dump. I don't feel that I'm reading a mythological tales of blah blah blah, but it feels realistic. Like, it feels like she actually cares and took a little bit of effort. And there's just nuggets like that that make it more believable, in my opinion. Not believable, but like interesting.
More credible.
Yes.
And she just kind of sprinkled those little bits into each book. And so it just
Mm-hmm.
made it very, very interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
So,
makes me want to check out other series by her
mm-hmm.
just because I had such a great time
Yeah.
with these. Again, they're not groundbreaking, they're not earth shattering. I'm not going to sit
Yeah.
here and claim that they are, but I had a great time with them.
Yeah. And like, I think that you're exactly right in that yes, the research on the lore of the supernatural beings really just, I think, elevated this background and the setting. It enriched everything and made it easier to settle into this world, you know, and to like jump in with Jillian as she's learning all these other creatures as well.
Right.
And so, yeah, for me, I think that just really, I could see how much like fodder that would provide for future books. And the fact that I really enjoyed the reading experience for this and just had a grand time and flew through it made me see that there was something in her writing here. You know, like, is it super going to be my new favorite ever, best written, winning awards? No. But like, do I want to keep going? Yes. Yeah, I do. So
I would recommend continuing with Mystic Bayou if you haven't, just because, well, I know you haven't, but to everybody else, just because I feel like it's fun. It's that fun paranormal that sometimes you just need to have a good time with a book. Books are meant to be entertainment and relaxing and escapism. And I tell you, I had a insane week at work. It was crazy. And I work at a bookstore. You don't think it would be that crazy, but it kind of was. And it was stressful and emotional and all sorts of things for me. And so to have this lighthearted read carrying me through the week was exactly what I needed. So for that, I thank Molly Harper graciously.
And that was sort of my goal when planning my TBR is I was hoping and planning for more of those lighthearted, more contemporary fun. I think the round before this or the round before that one, maybe even all of my books were just like the dark, the angst, the vampire, and it was like
I think you had.
I did a bunch of like Black Dagger Brother.
Black Dagger, yeah. I did do one Black Dagger this week. I did it's like book 15 or something. I'm pretty deep in the series anymore.
Yeah.
And that was my lowest rate.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like the later you get into the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, the more like convoluted the storylines get. Because you're trying to follow established characters and couples while also establishing new couples, and then you have to have the outside story arc going on.
Right.
And so it just gets to be too much where you're following too many stories. So it just gets harder.
Is there more and more introduction of like lore and like things that they never knew about or were discussed?
Yeah, a bit. In this one, we basically have a new scribed virgin in this book.
Oh, okay. See, because I sometimes feel like,
and the person that was chosen for that, I have all sorts of feelings about. But
now you're making me want to jump back into the series. I think I only read the first 3 or 4. I think I've read 4. My frustration with
you haven't even met this person yet.
Okay, but sometimes I feel like I read a series and they very clearly planned out books like 1 through 3 or 1 through 5, and then it's like a left turn happens and they're like, we're going to introduce a whole new thing we've never really talked about before, or that like I only kind of vaguely mentioned, but like now we're going to jump off from here. And I think sometimes it feels to me as if like the author's like, well, I just want to keep writing in this world, or this is now successful, so I want to continue it. And so
I do think that's kind of what happened with Black Dagger Brotherhood, because you can clearly tell that she planned the first 10.
Okay.
Because all of the characters, all of the brothers up to that point that you know and are introduced to get their stories by 10.
Okay.
Maybe 11. 11 was a stretch. I think 11 was just an add-on because fans asked for it, is kind of how that felt. But anyhow, at that point, she ends up taking a book to even like revisit our first couple.
Okay.
And then kind of starts over almost. And so it's just, you can tell that she loves the world,
Yeah.
but rather than making a spin-off series in the same world, she just
Mm-hmm.
continued with the same one while
Yeah.
also making spin-off series.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a little too much, but
Yeah.
that's personal feelings.
Yeah. I
Eh.
don't know. I think it must be really difficult to plot out books and books and books and books in advance. You know what I mean? Like even if you from the start can say, I can list 15 couples like this. You know what I mean? Like if it's in a romance series, to have some sort of connecting overarching plot, that's a big ask.
It is a
Because,
big ask.
you know, there's no, I know from like a actual, you know, take a step back, like from like a real life standpoint, is this person going to have the ability functionally, publishly, monetarily to get that many books written and out, you know, and like still be picked up by publishers. And so I
Right.
think that like I think people plan kind of smaller, and then when things get bigger, they're like, oh, let's expand this. Can we like force it? I don't know. Maybe that's I'm not a
Well,
writer, so I'm not sure.
it's funny that you say that because in manga this happens all the time.
Yeah.
Either the mangaka has a longer series planned, but it's not selling well, and they're like, okay, you have to finish in 3 to 4 chapters.
Yeah.
And so they have to rush their story right at the end, or they finish their story essentially, and they're like, you can't stop now. You have to keep writing. And so they're just like writing whatever comes to them after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just something that I do think happens in publishing as well,
Mm-hmm.
because there are some series where like they might start out as one book, but then they're like, okay, this did well. We want a whole series. Keep
Right.
writing with these characters, kind of a thing. And so it's just very interesting that way to me to see what happens. Because
Well,
sometimes it's great and other times it's garbage.
well, I mean, you have way, way, way more, infinite more manga experience than I do. But I did just recently read The Water Dragon's Bride, which I think
Oh, yay!
see that came up for me when I was looking for The Dragon's Bride by Katie Roberts, and I was
It
like,
doesn't surprise me actually.
yeah, like
It's very
looking,
smart.
yeah, I was like,
Go
oh,
Viz.
this looks cute. Like I'll get this. And the first like 1 or 2 volumes are like kind of dark because like people are like, oh, we're just gonna sacrifice you, and I'm like, okay, okay. But so I just ended up, I got the first couple of volumes I kind of had to wait for, so there was a little bit of time between them. And then suddenly I got to volume like 5 and I could see all the rest of them were available through my library. So I just got all the rest and went 5 through 11 in like 2 days, right? And it felt that way to me, like what we were just talking about, where she sort of, I assume that the mangaka had like 5 or 6 volumes planned and then was like, I gotta keep this going, and just like kind of threw in and introduced this whole new character. You think I would like Yona of the Dawn? I actually started Yona of the Dawn and got like 2 volumes in and I liked it, but also
It's very long.
well, I also, there was like the next volume like wasn't available at my library or something, so I was just like, well, I'll have to wait a little bit, and I didn't want to invest in purchasing the whole thing. And I also felt
Which I
like,
understand because it's a long series. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorites, so of course
okay.
I've bought all of them. But
well, I also was finding Yona a little like preachy, kind of like every volume she was like, and so the lesson we have learned today is blah 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 blah, and I was just kind of like, can you just be like a normal scared on the run girl? Okay. But anyway,
I do feel like that decreases a lot
okay.
more as the series goes on. Like Yona in the first couple of volumes is hard because she as a character is hard to love at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But you basically see her lose her entire life and start over in a way.
Okay. Yeah.
The only thing from her past she really has is the stupid hair comb from Suan and Hawk. Like that's it from her past that she has with her. Okay. Everything else she's basically starting over.
I was intrigued, but it was sort of the same situation. I was getting them from my
library.
Baz,
I'm so glad you started Yona too. I love Yona.
Didn't like her a lot.
Yeah, she's hard to love in the beginning, but I feel like she gets way, way better.
Okay, well that's promising. That's
she grows and matures a lot. Okay. Because she has to hit rock bottom.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Grow. I think if my memory serves, I made it to the volume where she cuts her hair, which was like 4 maybe.
Yeah. That happens pretty early on.
And then the next volume just wasn't available at my library, so I was just
I
kind of
think
like,
that's volume 3. Now that I sit here and think about it, like
I was
you're
not
just
very
in the
far in,
beginning.
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was in the beginning,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I knew that, but yeah, Baz says 2
yeah.
or 3.
It's 2 or 3. Yeah, it's pretty early.
So yeah, I was pretty early. I wasn't uninterested, but I was like, I felt I hit that roadblock, and I was like, I'll come back to this, and
Just haven't yet.
yeah, but I did like how Water Dragon's Bride ended. I felt like the
I
last
agree. I
volume,
loved the ending of that one.
the way that it was timey-wimey, that's all I'm gonna say. I
Yeah,
was like,
timey-wimey is good.
yeah, that brought
Yeah,
it.
end of volume 2. That feels about right.
Okay, maybe I might have made it a little bit past that. I might have. I feel like I made it past 2.
That's okay, Laura. I still love you.
Baz is like, I'm proving you wrong. It's volume 2. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, thought I made it to like at least 3 or 4, but
That's okay.
anyway. So,
Did we have any more thoughts about Mystic Bayou before we just chat?
No, I mean, I feel like we mostly covered it. I felt like the strongest elements were the setting and the setup for the series, as Shay was saying. Setup is a strong start to the whole series, and that you learn more about all these other mythological creatures throughout. I wanted a little bit more romance. Like, if we're gonna put my critical hat on, I wanted a little bit more from the romance.
Yeah, and I think a lot of paranormal series, the first book will always suffer in that moment because they have to sacrifice establishing the world for the romance. Right. But the future books always have stronger romances because they can focus on it a little more because your world is already established.
Mm-hmm. I feel like recently, for me personally, a number of the
yay, I love Heartstopper.
Oh, such a warm hug. Heartstopper is just like enchantingly warm.
They're just adorable. I love them.
Yeah. I feel like the last number of romance books that I've read, I was like, we could have edited this down. We could have cut 25, 30, 50 pages. In How to Date Your Dragon, I was like, we could have used 50 pages. I would have, like, I was enjoying it so much.
Right. I definitely could have taken more. Like, if she ever decides to go back to the Bayou and write more, I'm here for it. Well, I mean, even in the last book, she establishes a character that it's like, well, you've made me curious about this person. Are you ever going to write their story? Because I want it.
But this author has other series, right? Have you ever read anything else?
I haven't. This is the only Molly Harper I've ever read. So I'm probably going to explore more of her backlist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a good time with the writing style. I would definitely continue with both.
And if you can pick it up on audio, I would definitely recommend the audios because I feel like the dual narrations, because there's a male and a female narrator, I think that did wonders for my enjoyment as well. Because I even say this in my blog that'll come out in the next day or two. I think if I had physically read it or like read it on ebook, I don't think I would have enjoyed it quite as much as I did with the audio. Because I feel like the audio added in accents and really fun ways of talking that worked really well for me. So
did they do Cajun kind of I don't want to say accent, but like tones?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Zed, the mayor, so Cajun.
Yeah.
Like the way his voice came across was so Cajun. I was just like, oh, my heart. A Cajun bear shifter, like
that sounds
come
good.
On now.
I like that there was the inclusion of those like turns of phrase. Yeah. And I agree. I like dual narrators. Usually a little bit. I mean, I actually read a book not that long ago that was only one point of view, and I was like, so
single POVs are so much harder for me now.
No, years ago it was like, oh, I found a dual point of view, ooh, and like now it's like, this one's only single.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think we just get used to seeing both sides of the story. So when you're only getting one side,
right,
it's like, what's the other person hiding? Come on, I want to know. And I think having both almost adds to the tension.
Oh, I agree.
Because then you could see why one is making a certain decision.
Right.
And you're just like, oh, bad choice. Why are you doing that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think when there's two point of views, seeing, I like it both when they're both like, I'm pining for you, but I'm misinterpreting your signals, and I don't think you're interested in it. I like that.
One of the Mystic Bayous does that really well. Okay. It's the last one, actually.
Oh, okay. But I also really like it when usually it's the guy who's just like a total simp for her. He's just like, it's like chapter 2, and he's like, well, I found my fated mate. I love
Daz,
it.
I love
I'm
you.
going. And then the whole rest of the book is just him being like, isn't she just dreamy? And she's over there being like, do you think he might like me? And I'm like, yes, just go for it.
Seriously, Daz, I love you so much.
When you see them being stupid and you're just like, you want to reach into the page and just be like, oh. Yeah.
It's just, you want to reach through the book and like shake them and then pull yourself back out. And it's like, okay, go about your business.
Just kiss.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how it definitely is in that last Mystic Bayou books. It's called, my brain just short circuited. Hold on. A Farewell to Charms. That's what it is.
Okay.
The Nice Girl series by Molly Harper.
Okay.
Ooh, vampire? Yes, please. Because there were no vampires in Mystic Bayou.
I was going to ask you, is like, I didn't hear any mention of vampires.
No vamps.
I wonder if that was like I
think it was almost intentional, though.
Yeah. Well,
there's gator shifters, but there's no vamps.
Well, okay, so the only element that we didn't really discuss at all was the fact that there was like this like rift element that was like sort of a source of magic and energy. And
you find out what the rift is in the series.
Okay, because I was a little annoyed with Jillian's thoughts and reaction to the rift at the end. I'm trying to be I was annoyed with that. I was just like, okay, come on. Like, I felt like I'm going to say something slightly spoilery.
There was a sense of convenience in the ending of the first book.
Yes, but also the whole book was about how do paranormal and supernatural creatures get along with humans. And so for that not to be the end relationship also, I felt like kind of fell apart on its like theme to some extent. So I was a little annoyed with that. But I thought that was kind of an interesting element.
I can tell you there are 2 relationships in the series that are solidly, 3. Okay. 3, where it's a human and a paranormal creature, and the human does not have any sort of paranormal powers.
Okay. Because I felt like that was what was being set up in book 1, and it didn't really deliver on that. So I was kind of annoyed. But I did like that there was this element of the rift being present to be an influence or it was just sort of this extra element, not just like, there's all these creatures, but it was like more.
But it's what drew them together. And so they had to learn to live together because they were drawn there by the rift. Right.
And also
when you learn what the rift is, it makes even more sense. So that's why I'm like, I want to tell you, but I can't tell you.
I will. I want to keep reading this series, so I'm going to continue, and then I can message you and be like, about it.
Anytime.
Going to the library today. Okay.
Library runs are great. I should do the library more, but I work at a bookstore, so I just end up buying things.
This last comment about Wicked Conjuring having 5 point of views. I
think it can break down when there's too many.
That's what I was going to ask. Is how many is too many for you?
Again, I think.
Hi, Megan.
What's happening in Black Dagger Brotherhood is a prime example because you're getting way too many POVs. Hey, Megan. Yeah. Where I wish it was just like the main couple and maybe one other perspective. Like that would be fine for me. But you end up with 5 to 7 POVs in those books now, and I'm just like, you're stressing me out.
When I've read like a big high fantasy series, I expect or accept that a little bit more. Like I had started Wheel of Time. I only ever got through like the first 5 or 6 books, but like at that point,
I have the last 2 books and then I'm done with that one. I plan on finishing it this year.
But yeah, and at that point, like in that big, high fantasy series, all of the characters start, this group.
I basically read all the Mystic Bayou in one day too, Alicia. I read them all this week.
You read them all in one day? Oh my gosh.
They're not long. If you read them on 2 times speed, like it's a couple of hours.
Well, I just meant that's a busy day.
And there's 7 of them total.
Yeah.
But when the Audible catalog went away, when just the romance one.
Yeah.
went away. There was probably only 3 or 4 at the time.
Oh,
So,
okay. Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
yeah.
Have you read Outlander? Are you working on that series? No? No
No
interest?
desire.
Okay. I've
Everything
read,
I've heard about it, I'm like, why would you put that in a romance? No, thank you.
well, I mean, I read the first 3 or 4 like
Uh-huh.
when I was in like college, like I
Uh-huh.
was like, I wouldn't say it was my intro to romance, but like they were some of my earlier romance. I started my first intro to romance was paranormal romance, was Christine Feehan. Like
Feehan!
that was one of the first books.
Really?
Yeah. I remember just like
A
going to the
lot of
library.
people don't talk about Feehan, but I still read
Well,
Feehan.
I mean, I remember you and I've had this conversation or a
Uh-huh.
similar conversation. Yeah, I remember like Dark Prince was like one of the first books I ever checked out of the library and was like, it's got like a naked, like dreamy guy on the cover. Like,
See, what
yeah,
happened to me, my first Feehan, I found it at, I was working at Great Clips at the time,
okay,
and somebody had left their copy there.
okay,
And so all of us at the salon took turns reading it.
yeah,
And so we all like talked about it and we're like, this is some of the hottest sex scenes I've ever read. What is this?
yeah. Well, and I
And
was
and I went down a
17.
rabbit hole and read the first like 16 of them in
Yeah,
that
I
year.
I was like 16, 17. I think I found my first one like right before like the summer before I went to college, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I guess I would have been 18 then, I guess. And I remember being like I was like reading it and I was like I was like, my mom can't see me reading this, even though my mom was reading like the same
Well,
stuff that
one
Danielle
of my
Steele.
first audiobooks was Dark Gold.
Okay.
So one of my first audiobooks was a sexy audiobook. And I vividly remember blushing driving down the
Yeah.
road listening to this book because I'm just like, oh my gosh, what if somebody hears this?
I mean, yeah. Yeah. So Christine Feehan and her whole series on Carpathians was like some of my
Mm-hmm.
sort of my first romance introduction. But Outlander was not too far behind, and I know that she had like the I don't know ninth or 10th book or something came out this
Mm-hmm.
past fall,
Mm-hmm.
like last November, I think. And so I was rereading one of the last books so that I could just like kind of jump back in. And by this point, in almost every book, the author adds 1 or 2 more points of view. So now that we're on like book like 8 or 9, there's all
You
these
have
points
like
of
10
view.
POVs. No, thank
Yeah,
you.
and 2 or 3 of them are people that I'm just like, I don't care about you. Like,
Can I
good.
skip your chapters?
And like they're at the like Revolutionary War time. So those people's chapters are like, I'm a British soldier. Let me talk to you about this battle, or like talk to you about it's just like it's like a history
You're
snooze.
like, I don't
I'm
care.
like, can we
Go
go back to
away.
like the smut? Like, come on.
Right.
Anyway,
Whoa, whoops. That's an intense one for a parent to hear too. So
surprise.
surprise.
I frequently listen to audiobooks at work, and I, like someone will come in to ask me a question, or the guy comes to get my trash or whatever. And there's been definitely a couple times when I'm like, come in, like scrambling, trying to find something. Oh, there's been, and most of the time it's like a boring point. But there's definitely been at least twice where the
Surprise,
spice,
surprise.
where I'm in the spice scene, right? And like people are like, I'm just getting your trash. And I'm like, okay, thank you. What did you just hear? But oh well.
Honestly, like it
I
may
mean,
make them curious and they'll go explore their own.
like I'm not embarrassed to be reading it. It's just like I don't want to like
You
be
don't
in the
want to
middle of
force
a
it on other
yeah,
people.
and to like have this like guy who's this age of my father who I don't know, like to like walk into my office while I'm just like sitting there like doing like can you imagine just like type and it's like blah 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 blah. It's like key. So I might as well pause it
Uh-huh.
and not have to deal with any of that.
Exactly. Oh, all right. Well, I think that's everything for this one. We both had decent reading weeks, and you just had the one DNF that we talked about earlier.
My others were also a good time. I read Dragon Actually by G.A. Aiken,
That
and
one's been on my list for a long time. I just need to get around to reading it.
it was fun. It was sort of a like historical kind of setting. And the main female character is a real like warrior. So it was.
G.A. Aiken does like female warriors very well because I did the Blacksmith Queen, I think, by her.
Okay.
And it's another series, but very strong, very independent heroine.
Yeah.
She runs a forge. Like, she's just big muscle woman. Like, carried her man around and everything. It was great.
I did like.
She does that very well. G.A. Aiken does that very well.
And I liked the writing style of that, so I would check out another Aiken. And then I finished Witches Get Stitches, which is Juliet Cross.
I still have to read Don't Hex and Drive. I'm behind on that one.
I love all of them. All three of them.
I loved the first one.
Yeah.
Wolf Gone Wild. I just need to keep going.
I really like Juliet Cross's like writing style, so I want to read more what she puts out, whether it's Stay at Spell or any other series.
Same.
So good time.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Sorry the other hosts couldn't be here with us. It was just a bad night. We all had really rough weeks. So.
Scheduling.
Yeah, scheduling wise was crazy. So again, thanks everybody for participating. Go read the Mystic Bayou series if you haven't. If you read this first book, keep going. It's still a lot of fun. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.